from the studios of ITN The News with Carol Barnes.
Welcome to the programme. The headlines tonight. Stealth fighter plane crashes into houses during an airshow display. Political storm as Hague accuses Labour of making capital out of Diana's death. A 7-goal thriller as Blackburn attempt to top the table. And how Candle in the Wind hit the #1 spot in record time. An F-117 stealth fighter jet has crashed into 2 houses during an air show in the United States. Amazingly, no one was killed and just 4 people were injured. The pilot ejected safely. Witnesses spoke of seeing parts of the aeroplane fall from the sky before it spiraled to the ground. Here's our Washington correspondent James Bates.
It is the pride of the United States Air Force, a fighter that's almost impossible to detect by radar, which saw distinguished service in the Gulf War and was one of the highlights of this afternoon's air show. But in the middle of a flypast, something went catastrophically wrong. Part of the tail appeared to break away. The pilot instantly lost control. The F-117 fell helplessly towards the ground, the pilot ejecting with just a few hundred feet to go. But beneath his aircraft were several holiday homes bordering the Chesapeake Bay. In the explosion, 4 people were hurt. Miraculously, it seems, none were killed. A different camera caught the reaction of the crowd as the aircraft came down.
Stay where you are, folks. This is okay. Stay where you are.
From a distance, none could tell that the pilot had ejected. From the air this evening, firefighters could be seen still damping down the crash site. The plane appears to have crashed beside rather than on top of 2 large houses. For their occupants, this was a very narrow escape. James Mates, ITN, Washington.
Here, senior Conservatives joined in a chorus of condemnation tonight to attack the government's handling of Princess Diana's death. They're accusing Labour of making political capital out of the tragedy and using it to boost Tony Blair's image. Well, Labour's called the comments despicable. John Draper reports.
As the flowers continued to be taken away from Buckingham Palace, a political row was developing in the aftermath of the princess's funeral. The Conservatives claim that Labour officials divulged confidential discussions between Downing Street and the palace over the funeral arrangements.
The leaking of confidential advice given to the royal family, the apparent briefings to the press, that advice was given to the royal family that puts the government in a good light and the royal family in a bad light. Now that's shabby politics and it's bad government.
But the Prime Minister's colleagues defended his role and the way the public were kept informed of developments.
The government and those who briefed on behalf of the government did so in a way which was intended to help the royal family, help the palace, and to help the nation come to terms with grief at this time. And that was always made clear.
It's understood that criticism of the Queen reflected in a batch of opinion polls today is worrying Downing Street. In an NOP poll, 7 out of 10 people interviewed thought she was out of touch. A quarter wanted her to step down now. As for reports that payments of taxpayers' money to the royal family through the civil list might be scrapped, the government dismisses that as speculation. Tomorrow, the Conservative leader will write to the Prime Minister, setting out his concerns about Downing Street's handling of the funeral. He'll also request Conservative representation on the committee, deciding on a permanent memorial to the Princess. John Draper, ITN, Conservative Central Office.
The former Conservative MP Hugh Dykes has defected to the Liberal Democrats. Mr Dykes lost his seat at the last election after 27 years as the MP for Harrow East. He's announced his move in tomorrow's Independent newspaper. The Northern Ireland peace talks start tomorrow, but the Ulster Unionists still aren't saying if they'll take part. The Sinn Féin President Gerry Adams has urged them to join in. Ivan Little reports from Belfast.
On the eve of the talks designed to bring Protestants and Catholics here together, striking reminders today of the gulf that divides them. In County Antrim, Orangemen who used to march through the mainly nationalist village of Dunloy were stopped from doing so by scores of police But in Belfast, hundreds of Republicans were allowed to march to the former bastion of unionism, the City Hall. They were calling for the release of IRA prisoners, and while loyalists want their prisoners freed too, they wanted the Republican rally banned. It's all an indication of the difficulties facing negotiators at Stormont, and even today unionist leaders were refusing to confirm that they would be at the talks.
We do want to make sure that the voice of people of Northern Ireland is heard properly and accorded the respect that it deserves. And it's not much point entering a process where people listen to you and then go on and try to impose an arrangement designed to appease terrorists.
Sinn Féin President Gerry Adams was optimistic that unionists would be involved in the talks.
I want to see the unionists there. I want David Trimble and Ian Paisley to represent their section of our people. Will they do it tomorrow? I don't know. Will they do it eventually? Yes.
As final preparations were made at the talks venue, the government said they wanted all parties to be there tomorrow. Ivan Little, ITN, Belfast.
The Scottish Secretary Donald Dewar went on the campaign trail in Cardiff today in support of a Welsh Assembly. He urged the people of Wales to follow Scotland's example and vote for devolution. But no campaigners say the Welsh shouldn't be influenced by Scotland's result. Greenham Common peace protesters helped tear down the fence around the former American base today, the scene of 10 years of anti-nuclear demonstrations. The site's now being returned to common land. And two men have walked into the record books on a tightrope, 150 feet above the River Thames. They're the first to do so at the same time. Football and today's Premiership clash between Blackburn and Leeds provided a feast of goals, 7 in all. In the end, Leeds took the 3 points with a 4-3 victory. Paul Roy reports.
Ewood Park was about to witness 33 minutes of pure footballing theatre. Within 3 minutes of kick-off, Rod Wallace had scrambled Leeds ahead. And by the 6th, a fine strike by Robert Molyneux doubled their lead. Blackburn needed 2 more minutes to get into the game. Another wonderful shot, this time from the informed Kevin Gallagher. A Chris Sutton penalty put Blackburn level after 16 minutes. This situation only lasted 60 seconds though, Rod Wallace getting Leeds ahead again as the match entered the realms of fantasy football. The game was averaging a goal every 3.5 minutes. It took another 6 for Leeds to go 4-2 in front. Skipper David Hopkins' shot coming in the 23rd minute. By the 33rd, Blackburn were fighting back, but Martin Darlene's effort was the last goal this extraordinary match saw.
It was a very exciting game, great for the fans. A lot of bookings which were unnecessary.
The 7 goals were quite incredible. At least, 5 of the 7 goals were really good pieces of play and really good goals.
It were ace. We've lost, but we're still brilliant.
It means the last 2 matches at Ewood Park have produced 16 goals. Paul Royal, ITN Sport.
Finally, a week ago, Elton John's Candle in the Wind had only just been recorded. Tonight, it's Britain's #1 and the fastest-selling single in British history. Sue Turton reports.
So well done, Elton John, the fastest-selling record of all time, 658,000 copies. And don't forget, of course, if you have gone to your local store and it's sold out, they'll be making another 1.5 million over the weekend. It'll be in the store tomorrow morning.
Elton John wrote a tribute to Princess Diana, and the nation made it the